I'm Andrea Butcher, and this is Being at Work. Being a leader is hard. So on this show, I set out to talk with experienced leaders to learn from their pivotal moments, how they led through the challenges we can all relate to but are often unheard. When you think of progressive, future-focused people strategies, state government probably does not come to mind. But wait until you hear what Britni Saunders is up to. Britni is the director of the Indiana State Personnel Department. She was appointed to the position by the governor, aligned with his mission of taking Indiana to the next level. Her mission is to transform the employee experience for 30,000 employees statewide. This leadership challenge, as you'll hear, is a daily personal one for Britni. She is a proud Hoosier and keeps raising her hand to provide people solutions to business problems. Take a listen.
Well, my HR path is a little bit irregular. I don't have a traditional HR background. I kind of consider myself somebody who helps provide people solutions to business problems, which is not always how you would think of an HR person maybe. I spent 10 years at Starbucks, actually, where I learned how business objectives are met by putting people-related solutions first. They, sort of brand themselves as that. And I gravitated towards projects that were more along the lines of organizational development. So I loved my time there. It was wonderful. And I was recruited to a training role at the state in 2013. When I took that role, I just progressively moved into talent management related positions over the next 4 years, until I reached my current role. And in 2017, Governor Holcomb appointed me as the Indiana State Personnel Director. Kind of a funny traditional name, which is ironic because I'm not a traditional HR person. It's basically the CHRO of the executive branch of state of Indiana government. So I head up the centralized human resources agency, which covers about 30,000 employees statewide across approximately 74 unique business units. So based on my background, I'm really passionate about driving business results through people-related solutions, providing great customer service that always comes from a place of yes when we can instead of starting with a no, and enabling a great, incredible employee experience for both my team and the employees that we serve. And of course, I'm really passionate about providing HR in a public service environment because when we do a good job at that, we provide better service to all Hoosiers.
So much there I want to dive into, but I want to start with the transition from Starbucks to the state. So progressive, trendy, when I think of Starbucks, to the state, government, traditional, not as progressive. So what was that like making that transition?
Honestly, it was tough. I have joked with a few people that have sort of similar starting stories as me, that from my first week, I was that person that was like, we're going to do it all, you guys. We're going to make everything awesome, and we're just going to do every single thing that we've ever wanted to do here. And I don't think that I've lost that feeling and that spark, but I have figured out how to do that in a better way. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, I think that if you care about what public service looks like in your community, and I think most of us do, I mean, we pay for it, right? Then you want it to do great. I mean, and I don't know that I would have seen that part of passion for me before I joined the state, but once I did, it was just locked in. Like, this is the best place to make great of all because I could make such a difference for all Hoosiers.
Because of the opportunities that existed.
Right.
What would you say were some of the things that led you to be successful?
I love when people talk about what has made them successful. I also love when they talk about what they learned was not successful because I think that's also a way to answer that question. I will tell you one thing that comes to mind is more along those lines. I mean, I have learned to be a way better listener over the last 6 years, and I have learned to appreciate the hard work that has come before me. It's really easy to walk into a place and say, hey, I've got all these great ideas and let's go do them. But it's harder to see what has been done before you and to appreciate the privilege that you have to, make this amazing fun stuff happen because of the hard work that came before you. So that's one thing. that I didn't always do well here, but that I've learned how to do better. And I think that's helped make me successful. Another thing is just staying curious. I mean, it's a really trendy thing to say, to have a genuine sense of curiosity, but I think that is absolutely true. It's really hard to actually do that at times because it may lead you down paths that you didn't want to go down or to conclusions you didn't want. But I think that served me well. And then the last thing is being okay with having a very loving sense of conflict, which sounds like an oxymoron, but I have a guilty pleasure for being able to ask the question that I actually want to ask and not feeling like I can't have the right conversation at the right time. And so I've practiced that a lot. And that's hard because in government, especially, and I think this goes with other organizations, you've got people that have done it this way for a while, and there's probably a lot of good reason why they've done it that way for a while. And you've got this other group of people who say, well, we don't have to keep doing it that way. And let's think of all these innovative ways to do things differently. And both perspectives are actually really important. So if you can figure out how to marry those up, then you have the best of both worlds. You learn from the past. You're able to make an educated decision on how to be innovative from there.
So it's a lot of listening, curious, and then not being afraid to have tough conversations because you're driving change. So we know conflict's going to be a part of that.
Yep.
So you approach human resources from such a strategic perspective, people solutions to business problems. And no doubt that's been a big part of your success as well. I'm curious about how that plays out in a traditional government organization. Give us an example of how you partner with business leaders.
Well, I guess let me start by saying to address sort of, what's the value in approaching HR from a non-traditional place. I mean, I think HR is still trying to figure itself out, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a career HR person, but it does seem like the HR industry has evolved a ton over the last 20 years. They continue to evolve, moving from compliance-based HR to sort of this strategic talent management way of doing business. It's a big swing. And I think at our core, HR professionals are trying to understand what the human experience is so that we can help people be their best when they're at work and we can deliver the best results possible. But obviously understanding how to lead humans is complex and challenging. So my team's primary mission right now is to transform the employee experience at the state. And so for us, that means a roadmap full of all kinds of activities that would help us do that, like putting in place new tech solutions, freeing up our HR teams from transactional redundancy, becoming more data-driven, modernizing policy, embedding tools to enhance the manager-employee relationship. But honestly, when I was preparing notes for this, I wrote that part down and I thought, that is so many buzzwords, which is another thing. I hate talking like that. And so I would tell you actually that at the end of the day, I think what I'm asking my team to do right now is to position people to be their best version of themselves every day. And so what that looks like in practice is, us enabling that manager and employee relationship to be something it's not been before. You think about how much time we spend at work and how much time we spend with our bosses, and that relationship has a huge impact on us. It can either be inspiring or transactional. We talk a lot about fulfillment in the workplace. How do we get people to feel fulfilled? And I have to go back to that ability for managers to successfully pull out a sense of curiosity and potential from the people that they lead. And just to be honest, that's super, super hard. I mean, when people talk about their favorite bosses, they talk about people that show them appreciation, that encourage them, that challenge them. And not everyone has that skill set that's a boss. And so one of the least things that my team and I can do is provide solutions through our technology that allow them to engage with their employees differently and more frequently. So one example of that, for instance, is our new performance management system that we are in the process of implementing. One of the complaints that we've heard a lot is it feels like sort of a one and done activity. Now, you set your goals at the beginning of the year, you do an evaluation at the end of the year, and you have all this time in between where so much has happened. And maybe your boss did a good job capturing your progress and maybe they didn't. And the new tool that we're rolling out to managers to leverage is, imagine like a social media comment stream. You've got people, so minus the drama, right? Let's pretend it's a nice comment stream. But you've got, somebody that's saying something, somebody that's commenting back, and you can see the whole conversation, right? Well, it's such a simple thing, but what if instead of requiring managers to have this in-person meeting and taking time out with travel and arranging all that, what if the employee is able to just come to an agreement with their manager that once a week they're going to log in and they're going to comment on their goals and where they're at, and the manager is going to reply back, and they have this captured dialogue that is already ready to go as they're, putting together their evaluation and having coaching conversations throughout the year. So that's just a really simple tool. But, again, at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we train people how to use that tool best. I mean, technology is as good as its user. So if managers don't understand, one, that their relationship with their employee matters, and two, how they can leverage technology in ways that will allow them to bridge that relationship in really great ways, then they really can reach, a better level of potential from their employees. And, back to the comment I made before, a lot of us want to have curious conversations, but we don't like where they go sometimes because, if a manager has a really great, powerful, curious conversation with an employee, that could mean they leave that job, right? It can mean they leave the organization, they can leave the workforce entirely. They could change careers. But man, what a powerful, amazing thing for someone to be able to follow the path that will allow them to be at their best potential. And that's really what we want people to be able to do here.
So back to your mission of helping employees be the best version of themselves. It's a really good example of that. So you mentioned earlier, Britni, that the scope of this is 30,000 employees statewide. And so, I was going to ask, how do you scale transforming the employee experience with that many individuals? And so it sounds like this tool is one example of how you're equipping leaders to improve the employee experience. How have leaders responded to that? And tell us a little more about how you're equipping leaders to help.
So we haven't rolled out the tool yet. We're, and that's, like you said, one grain of sand in the whole system transformation. But what we're doing is we're bringing people to the table to make those configuration decisions with us about what should the future state employee experience look like. So like I mentioned earlier, we have about 74 unique business units, and we have identified sort of like an ombudsman for each one of those agencies, or a lead. And in a lot of cases, it's, a thought leader from that agency that is very engaged with the employee experience and understands what right can look like. And we've brought them to the table and we've said, hey, if we had a magic wand today and we could create the perfect employee experience foundation possible, what would that look like for you? And let's not even think about all the rules and restrictions that may be out there. Let's define that first, and then let's go slowly through that and try to get as close to that as we can. And I don't know that we've done that before here. And it's been a powerful exercise because, we've heard opinions from people we may not have ever heard, and they've been able to influence the decisions that, HR is making, which prevents us from working in a silo. So that's been an awesome experience. We're actually putting into place 5 new system modules, which will impact different elements of the employee life cycle. And so we've asked for that type of contribution and activity and feedback from all of those business units the entire way, and we'll continue to do so. We've only implemented one of the 5 modules so far. We have a long way to go, but that initial relationship building has just been really powerful.
Yeah, that's great. What kind of response are you getting from folks?
It's interesting. I see that there's a hunger there to give us their opinion on what the employee experience should look like. And, we saw a lot of that, especially with the first module. We're moving into the second one. And we found that also it's kind of a draining experience for people. So we've had to continue to identify new thought leaders to sort of tag out, and come participate, because we are asking a lot from these folks. It's not just hey, show up and we'll tick the box that your business unit showed up. I mean, you're really, you're really participating, and it can be tough. But what that's done is it's really, spread out our network of influencers. So, I like to think, I think that we are seeing where that type of engagement and ownership in the process is creating a better employee experience on its own, because people have a say in what's happening.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, just by engaging them, you're getting them more involved in their experience. So you are doing, you've given us a couple of examples of things you're doing to impact the employee experience, and those sound pretty progressive. So tell us about the name of your department. You alluded to this earlier when you kind of made a joke about state personnel department. There, there's such a trend these days of HR leaders renaming their functions, the people function or the talent function. What do you think about the name of your function?
Oh yeah, I'm hanging tough here as the state personnel director, right? Yeah, so I would love to change it. I mean, just to something, a little bit more easily identifiable. I mean, like the chief human resources officer or the human resources department. I'm not looking for anything fancy. For me, it's unique because it's literally written in Indiana code, so I have to go through a legislative process to change it. But it is funny because right now my team is identifying itself as, going through this huge modernization process. I mean, we're rethinking everything. Every time that we go to, impact a different part of the employee life cycle, then we're sitting in a room and we're saying, okay, what are the policies that are a part of this piece of the employee life cycle, and do those still work? I mean, so we're uncovering lots of things, every single time that we tackle a new element. And it's just funny, we have this kind of old school name, and I don't know that people, that aren't in government know what I do or what my team does, but, that's not really important to me today.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, how important do you think the name is?
The employee experience that we're creating is the most important thing. And I don't know that employees care what we're named. At the end of the day, I care a little bit. I'd love to see it change, but it would be sort of egotistical to think that anyone else besides me and my immediate team really cares.
It's more about the experience that you're creating than it is about what you are called.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so that's where you're putting your energy on the employee experience. So what about other senior leaders in the organization? I suspect through relationship building and partnering with them that they're bought in and engaged with the changes you're driving. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, most of the stakeholders and leaders that I work with, they have a flavor and a kind of an idea of what the vision is. And we continue to try to communicate that as best as possible. But it's kind of like, HR gets it. And we keep trying to get everybody else to see what we see as the possibility. But there are a lot of really progressive leaders here that I work with who have come to state government because they want to make a difference. And so there's a good community of people here that are really progressive and modern. The governor, appointed me in this position, and that is an amazing opportunity. And I know that a priority of his was to also surround himself with people who could, in his words, take Indiana to the next level. And that does require a lot of out of the box thinking and people being open to new ideas. So, culturally, the tone for what I'm trying to do has already been set at the top, which is helpful. And just like with any change, you kind of commit yourself to being curious again and innovative and, driving positive change. But every time you go to do that, it doesn't matter because it's hard. Actually working those changes out is hard because you don't always anticipate what it's going to take to do that or what behaviors of your own have to change in order to get there. And so I think we're in a really supportive place to get this work done, but it just takes a lot of time, talking through what needs to change and trying to figure out, where's the line where I no longer can allow you to, not want to change. And I need you to step up and I need you to, make the decision to get in the middle with or, figure out what else you want to do. I think that's a natural part of change. It's a conversation, that doesn't come up all the time, but it's part of it. When you're transforming a huge service or business or, fill in the blank, big change, then not everybody is always going to want to do what you want to do. So it goes back to listening, appreciating what other people have done before, trying to learn, being curious, all the things that we've done.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's a daily personal challenge for you. I mean, it sounds like there's a clear why in this for you, Britni. I mean, I can only imagine how that must have felt when the governor, asked you to take this position. That must have been a huge honor for you. And what a great opportunity.
I love telling people that I'm such a wild card in this job because I love showing other people that they can do whatever they want to do. If they raise their hand and put themselves out there, then they can do it. I do think that I have worked hard and am really passionate about making things better in whatever work environment I'm in. But also every single time I raised my hand and said, hey, I think I can do that for you. Hey, I think I can do that for you. Hey, I have some good ideas for that. And so you just got to keep raising your hand. I'm so honored to be in this position, and I am thankful every day. And it's hard. It's hard work. And I appreciate, people that are working in environments where there is just a huge reward for all that persistence and that grit. But it doesn't mean that every day is easy by any means. I mean, I've had, my fair share of days that have, been really tough. And people don't talk about those enough, especially in forums like this, because you really, question, am I the right person to be in the job? And am I here at the right time? But again, that's just part of the journey,
It is part of the journey, isn't it? And I mean, that's the spirit of this podcast is. And one of the reasons I asked you to be a guest is because you are leaning into challenge every single day and taking it on. And I love your attitude. Earlier you said, I come from a place of yes. So tell us a little bit more about that. Is that who you are as a leader? Has that developed? Are you intentional about that? Like, where does that positive attitude come from that keeps you in the game?
I think it's twofold. One is just the core of, having coming from such a strong customer service background. It doesn't make sense to work with people and to keep saying no all the time. It just does not make sense. But I know that sometimes we have to figure out how to get to saying no if it's the right thing to do. But here's the thing. I think at its core, it comes back to wanting to bring out the best in the people around you and to get the maximum potential from the people around you. And the easiest way to shut down an idea faucet is to say no. People have ideas all the time, and that's where innovation is born. And the quickest way you can get rid of that is by saying no. So instead of saying no, figure out what can be. So let me listen to what you're telling me again, and let me hear that differently so that maybe we can figure out a way to get there. It doesn't have to be a no. It can be okay, let's figure this out. And so I think that's something that my team and I are really trying to practice as often as possible. Government is known for regulation, right? Red tape, right? Bureaucratic. And some of that may be true, but you don't have to approach the work like that. And you don't have to sit in meetings and just accept what you're hearing. You can challenge those thoughts and learn and be curious. And it takes grit, but you really can make changes happen if you persevere.
Well, and no doubt you are, through all of that, you are helping to take Indiana to the next level. So thank you for for the grit, for the determination, for showing up every day, doing what you can to make a difference.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'll pass the thanks along to my team who probably deserves it most.
Yes, no, and please do so. You, no doubt you are, and how do you keep them engaged?
I think that we've talked a lot about mission. We've talked a lot about why here. And I've not outright asked my employees this, but I want to think that they know that I want them to feel like they relate to the mission. We spend a lot of time. I mean, every quarterly all staff meeting, I have about 200 people that are part of my HR team. and we meet once a quarter, and every part of those meetings, or every one of those meetings, there's a portion of it that talks about mission and values and the activity that we've had from one quarter to the next and how they relate back to that. So it really is a constant practice, and, it comes with checking yourself in meetings too, if we're not aligned. But I think because we all know what we're working towards, which again is that, transformation of what the best possible employee experience would be at Meet, which would inevitably result in the best possible service to Hoosiers. I mean, we have people that have been able to get behind that. And we look for people that want to get behind that. And that's not always easy to find those folks, but it's a continued practice. I'm going to say there's a book called Resonant Leadership out there. And I only remember that because I remember a couple times in my career where, we all go in bell curves, where we feel really, really engaged or where we feel like complete failures. And I think that's natural, but the whole point is how to get out of that bell curve, that, that bottom feeling place that everyone inevitably gets in at some point. And again, I don't think we talk about that enough in the leadership forums, but everybody goes through that. So if we can create a work environment and a place where it's okay to talk through those things, it's okay to acknowledge, being truthful isn't a dirty word, then I think you really can appreciate what the human experience is like in the workplace, and people can feel more comfortable growing with you because it's a lot more authentic.
Yeah, and you keep raising your hand through it all. Even in the midst of the challenge and the uncertainty and the doubt, you keep raising your hand. That's my big takeaway from our conversation is through it all, regardless of the environment or the situation, just keep raising your hand and look for opportunities to help, opportunities to serve.
Yep, everybody can.
No doubt. Britni, thank you so much for being a part of our conversation today. If our listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Definitely through LinkedIn. I would love that. I love meeting new people, hearing new ideas. That would be great.
Great. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks a lot, Andrea. I appreciate the invite.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast to never miss a Being at Work story.